Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm host Nash Roberts. We've only got 4 segments today. There were only 3 NBA games last night, so there's not a lot of talking points from those. And we're going to focus on some players from those, but we're also going to talk about Bronny James being relegated to the G League, the NBA star problem, and a little bit more. Thank you for tuning in. We'll hopefully have a more comprehensive podcast tomorrow. This is State of the Association. I'm host Bronny James is going to be going down to the G League for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I believe that this is 100% the right decision. I was of the belief that Bronny should have stayed another year in college to sit and develop, because the first year at USC, yeah, his production wasn't very good. There's no arguing that, but he also had the heart conditions. So there were 2 major factors really pulling against him in terms of his profile as a draft prospect. Ultimately, he kind of had a safety net, that being LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. His dad plays for the team. He obviously, his vocal essay once played for some in the past. Bronny kind of had a safety net coming into the league, that if he declared for the draft, he would find a spot on at least one team. But now we're past that point. He is in the NBA. And oftentimes, the highly touted rookies, or ones that are on teams that are kind of dealing with injuries, those are the ones that get slotted in immediately. Bronny was not one of those highly touted prospects whatsoever, really. From what we saw at USC, it wasn't that encouraging, but we did see some defensive upside for sure. But he goes to the league, and the NBA moves fast, especially for a team like the Los Angeles Lakers, one of, if not the biggest franchise in the entire NBA. So you're going to come in, and you're going to be expected to perform, whether that's fair or not. I think it's the same thing with Bronny. He's in a situation where he is expected to perform and do well, but he's just not quite ready to be that, real rotation caliber NBA player yet. And that's okay, because a lot of times, especially a second-round pick, they're not going to be NBA ready. But because he's LeBron's son, because he's playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, there's kind of a media discourse surrounding him a lot more than they would just some other late second-round pick. And so with the Los Angeles Lakers, I think they've been really smart about handling the whole Bronny James situation. In the first game of the season, LeBron James got to share the court with his son, so you got rid of the headlines immediately of, when is Bronny going to get to play with LeBron, or vice versa. You got rid of those question marks by making it happen immediately the first game of the season. And so then you don't have to worry about when's the first time they're going to share the court together. And that media discourse really kind of distracts from the real game, from the real strategy game plan that JJ Redick can put in place, because the media is going to be calling for it, and especially in LA, they can call for a coach's head for less than that, for nothing. So JJ's got to do that immediately. That was a smart move by him to get rid of the media discourse about when Bronny's going to play with LeBron by just getting it out of the way. And now I think they're making another smart decision by sending Bronny to the G League, because, the NBA does move fast. And as a result, I don't know that he right now has what it takes to develop in Los Angeles for the main team, just with all the bright lights there. But if you go to play for the G League team, there's much less of a spotlight on that, and Bronny is going to be able to develop at his own pace. And I think moving him to the G League is a great move, and it's really the best move for Bronny's long-term outlook. I feel like he should have stayed another year in college, but this is certainly touched on LeBron for a second there. The NBA has a major star problem, and that is truly who's going to take the mantle when Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant are gone. Because these guys have transcended the sport itself by not just becoming successful in the league, but becoming major personalities outside of it. They're the ones that got all the bandwagon fans, or the ones that just hype these players up no matter what. But the true point of it is that they are able to attract a large casual audience, because a casual fan, someone on the outside looking in, not really in touch with the NBA much, they don't really, unless they've got something real regional and they want to root for the regional team, they don't really know certain players, at least, to really root for. But, these guys have been dominating for so long, especially LeBron James, been in the league since 2003, and so likely a top 10 player. They've been in the league for forever, and they're still performing at a high level. And so to be elite for so long, that's easy to root for as a fan. You know, you hear stories of the success of a guy like LeBron or Curry, and then you turn on the national TV game, and they're still kicking it in their ripe old age. So those guys are easy to root for, but what happens when they're gone? And there's a changing of the guard. And now the league is led by young guys like Nikola Jokic, who's still going to be good in a couple of years. Anthony Edwards, who's probably going to be on another level by that point. I think this year is really kind of showing the superstar leap. Jason Tatum has kind of attracted a lot of the casual NBA fan base for a younger player. Luka Doncic, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These are guys who are kind of projected to be the next faces of the league. However, none of them right now truly have the marketability that a guy like LeBron, like KD, like Steph Curry have. And this was really exemplified by, in Steph Curry's return, that was the most watched televised NBA game in the last 2 weeks. So this is kind of showing that, and viewership has kind of declined this season for sure, but it's showing that, you know, the new guys, when the old guys are out injured, Steph Curry, for example, the new ones aren't really able to pull in the same audience. And part of that is just the fact that you have three of the greatest players of all time. You have a top 2 player of all time. You have a top 2 point guard of all time. And then one of the best scoring forwards ever as well. So it's part of it that just comes down to the talent of the player. But another part of it is marketability. Because the NBA, they go about their marketing a lot differently than the NFL does. The NFL, they advertise to you, for the most part, they advertise the product. They advertise the game of football and what you can watch week in, week out, every Sunday, every Thursday night, every Monday night. That is what they advertise first and foremost, the brand of football and all the positions that surround it, whether it's, you know, Christian McCaffrey and Amon-Ra doing a little Caesars partnership right now. And obviously they have stars. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce are some of the winningest, but around the league, you've got tons of stars in the NFL. However, they don't necessarily always market around those stars. They market the game itself more so, the product on the field. However, the NBA, its marketing is very superstar focused and very celebrity oriented. In the latest tip-off before this NBA season, the big commercial for that, you didn't have, you know, just random role players out there. You had major stars in the league. And you also had celebrities like Kai Cenat was in there. So the NBA, they cater to the casual fans who really just root for the superstars more so. And with the changing of the guard that is going to come soon, just Father Time catches them all. When that changing of the guard happens, the NBA is going to have a major star problem. Because as great as Anthony Edwards is, as great his personality is, as marketable as Jason Tatum seems to be, they're never going to reach these heights that Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant did. They're never going to get people, the casual fans at least, as invested as those 3 players did. And that's where the NBA's marketing problem comes in. And they're going to experience record revenue, I'm sure. Just, you know, salary cap's going to go up. The NBA, as inflation rises, the NBA's bottom line is going to rise too. However, in terms of having the same cultural impact, in terms of having people really watching the NBA all around the world, all the casual fans really tuned in, I think the NBA has a major marketing problem in that this next generation of guys, aside from maybe Wemby, they're not really, to this point, experiencing the same success in terms of TV viewership as the old guys like Steph Curry, LeBron James, and KD. And part of that has to do with streaming as well. I have League Pass, but that doesn't let me see nationally televised games, and then sometimes I'm not able to see the nationally televised games, so part of it comes down to that. However, at the end of the day, you've got to have stars to have casual fans out and talking about your game. And I'm not sure how the NBA is going to do once the 3 major stars of the league today are gone. I think talent-wise, the league is in a better place than ever before. But for the casual fan, in a couple years from now, they're not going to have the guys to really follow and root for and be, you know, like LeBron's got his fans that are just LeBron's fans. They'll follow him everywhere he goes. I don't know that we have any young stars that are really going to be like that. And that's the problem for the NBA. The hardcore fans will still be tuned in, but they're going to be tuned in no matter what. So at a certain point, you do have to cater to the casual market. And I think this next generation of stars, as great as they are, they don't quite have the marketability. And the counter argument to that is that, with time, they will go on to win championships. Jason Tatum just won his first one. They will go on to win championships, and that's how we will define the era's great players. And that is how we will define the real marketable faces. You see it with Tom Brady back when he was with the Patriots. They were winning all the time. They were a dynasty, and people were rooting for them. See it with the Kansas City Chiefs now in the NFL. But here's the thing. We don't necessarily have the time for them to accumulate their championships because so soon guys like LeBron and Curry, they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone before, all of these young stars, they get a chance to really experience proper success. And you're going to have question marks about them like you have all the question marks about Jason Tatum being a true superstar. You're going to still have questions about, if they can get it done in the playoffs. And the casual fan, especially when they're one that's just going to lock into one player, they like to see the guy that's going to have the most success and that you really can't deny his greatness. And you can deny the greatness of a lot of these guys. A lot of people say Anthony Edwards hasn't quite hit superstar status yet. A lot of people question Jason Tatum's superstar status. And in general, he's a very criticized player. And Wemby, he's the only one that's truly undeniable right now. But the Spurs as a team aren't going anywhere as currently constructed. They've got some guys there, I think Sohan has potential to be good. Devin Vassell's a good player. Wemby's great, of course. However, in general, Spurs aren't going anywhere fast in terms of, real championship contention. And we don't have much time. I think if Jason Tatum is able to accumulate a ring or two more and receive a Finals MVP, I think we can kind of get out of the star debate and who's going to be the real marketable star. I think he could take that mantle. Because there is a portion of fans that are Jason Tatum fans. That's really the only one that truly comes to mind. Same with Anthony Edwards, I suppose. But in general, despite, the social media fan accounts of a guy like Jason Tatum, the viewership is not quite the same as it is with guys like LeBron and KD and Curry. And as a result, it kind of leads me to believe that the NBA does have a star problem. And I believe it can be fixed. I believe a continued greatness of these guys is going to be able to minimize the issue. But overall, viewership is declining in the NBA. And the major factor behind that is that when this big three of guys who have carried a generation are gone, the NBA is going to have a major Davis is currently on top of the key MVP ladder. And he's been playing absolutely dominant to start the season. 32.6 points a night, 11.7 boards. This season has been Anthony Davis's true coming out party for the Los Angeles Lakers. We knew how great a player he was, especially back on the Pelicans and on that 2020 Lakers bubble team. But at the end of the day, especially when he was on the Lakers, that was definitively LeBron James' team. Anyone else, they came second. And front office-wise, you still kind of see that. J.J. Redick, he's LeBron's buddy at the head coaching position. And then the Lakers, of course, they went out and drafted Bronny. However, on the court right now, this is Anthony Davis's team. First and foremost, and the Lakers live or die by Anthony Davis's performances. He's taking a ton of shots, and he's making 57% of them. And he is atop the key MVP ladder right now. And I think that is very well deserved. Anthony Davis is one of the best players in basketball to never truly get a major award. No MVP, no DPOY, despite being one of the best defensive players that we've seen in the past decade. Anthony Davis has never really received his flowers, and as long as he's been on the Lakers, it's never really been perceived as his team. But right now, he's playing undeniably, and while the Lakers are truly off to a middling start to start the year, they got off really hot, but they've cooled down ever since. I think that at the end of the day, they are in a good position because they are not relying on a 39-year-old basketball player who's still great, but they're not relying him to play out the whole game. They can allow Anthony Davis to close it and be the star, the guy to go to if they have to. And I think that's huge for the sustainability of this Lakers team. LeBron and AD were relatively healthy last year, but previously they would both deal with injuries, and obviously AD has been the more injury-prone throughout his career. But in terms of, just looking at it from the perspective of a 39-year-old versus a guy in his early 30s, Who are you going to trust more at this point in their careers, despite how great LeBron is, to be the one to lead this Lakers team and have the high motor and be the guy when you need him? I trust Anthony Davis more at this point, and that is not a knock on LeBron as much as it is a testament to Anthony Davis's ability. Now that does bring up the question of injuries, and it would be a shame to see Anthony Davis get injured in this season because this looks like his real year for the Lakers to officially be his team. And it's not only good for the Lakers right now, I believe, to not have to rely on LeBron. It's great for their future too. Because yes, AD is getting up there in age, but he's going to be around the league longer than LeBron is. And for the Los Angeles Lakers, they spent so much time making trades, acquiring guys to favor LeBron and try to extend a championship window around him. But LeBron's not going to be there forever. However, you know who's going to be there in the years after LeBron? Anthony Davis. So to have a year like this, where so far Anthony Davis has solidified himself as the 1A, not the 1B on this team, that is great for the Lakers, not just right now, to not have to rely on LeBron playing 40 minutes a night, but it's great for the long-term outlook of them. And not necessarily long-term, but, you know, for the next 5 years or so after LeBron's gone, I think that they are in a much better position than they were even a year ago in terms of that. And honestly, D'Lo has not got off to a good start to the year. He always gets off to a slow start. It's a continuing theme. If anyone is surprised right now, they really shouldn't be. But I know D'Lo just got some criticism from JJ Redick. However, if he's able to get back up to his normal level and perform at a better level than he is right now, I think that D'Lo could be a very solid second option. Because as a third, that's kind of where your defense becomes more noticeable if it's bad, because the second option you can make up for the flaws with the role players behind him, but as a third you become more of a role player. And so I think for D'Angelo Russell, if he was able to be the second man behind AD after LeBron's retirement, that would actually be a really good role for him, in my opinion, because the defensive flaws would not be as noticeable because he's asked to do more on the offensive end instead of just being a supporting piece. And yes, he can be inconsistent on offense, but pure talent-wise, he is one of the better offensive engines in the entire league. And I think you could really build something around that. And overall, Anthony Davis, he's off to a great start to the year, top of the key MVP ladder. And that is great news for the Los Angeles Lakers that this can finally be Anthony Davis' team. And I believe that he can lead them to great things. LeBron can still be a great, valuable, contributing player. However, at the end of the day, you have to roll with who's doing the most out there, and that is Anthony Davis on both the offensive and defensive end. Not off to a great start to the season. That is Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. He's averaging 16 points a night, 7.5 rebounds on 37% from the field. And Lauri, as a player, is someone I was really high on, especially that Utah Jazz year where he was an all-star starter. And then last year he wasn't as great, but he was still a really solid forward in this league, a great first option for the Utah Jazz. However, he's been really inefficient to start this year, and that's not good. You can get away with that as a guard, as, you know, the primary ball handler. But Lauri Markkanen, he's more of a play finisher. So when your efficiency is low, that's a big red flag. And I think ultimately it will get better because if we have seen one thing from Lauri Markkanen, it's that worst case scenario he's gonna average 42% from the field. But we're 5% away from that right now, and even that 42 isn't great. But his first 2 years in Utah, his efficiency was really, really high, especially the All-Star starter year. And it was because, or in my opinion at least, it was because he kind of had a chip on his shoulder to prove himself. The Bulls moved off of him, and then he went off to Cleveland, had a 1-year stint there, and then now he ends up in Utah. And he's got to prove himself because at this point he has not lived up to the potential player that he could be. He was a serviceable role player, but that was it. And he believed he could be more, and he was. And he was the first option for Utah Jazz team that at one point in time, may I remind you, was the 1 seed in the Western Conference. And ultimately, the Jazz they don't have the brightest future under Lauri Markkanen. However, at the end of the day, he proved that he can be a contributing, really good player in this league. But we are not seeing that to start off this NBA season. I think ultimately he will get better. And as a play finisher, there can be times, sure, we are not executing to your full ability, but your efficiency should be better. As a guy who's not a point forward would be more understandable, but Lowry is the play finisher. And as a result, you don't have the ball in your hands all the time. And you're not going to be jacking up shots that you shouldn't be that often. And you're still not that efficient. That is a major problem for Lowry. I think he'll get better. I'm a huge Lowry Markkinen fan, but it has not been a great start to the NBA season for him. And the thing that surprised me most about this is that this is where a player typically hits their prime. Lowry Markkinen is in his age 27 season. Typically, a player is going to peak around 27 to 31. And Lowry looks like he is on the decline right now. So you hate to see that. Just hope Lowry gets to playing at a high level once again. Because I think when he is on, he can be one of the best scoring forwards, at least, in the league. And we saw that his first episode of State of the Association. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be back with a more comprehensive podcast. I think my star segment was alright, but in general, I wasn't a huge fan of this one. And there also just weren't a lot of segments, but hey, we're just trying to get better each and every time. Thank you for listening. This has been State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts.